Welcome to the Yankee Cowboy Podcast, coming to you from Dallas, Texas. Here's your host, Tim Wilkins.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another awesome episode live from Podcast Movement in Denver, Colorado this week. Because yours truly is at a podcast convention. Because why the hell not? We're talking about NASCAR this week, and we have playoff implications. And I am joined by the co-host of all co-hosts, the man who has no plan other than just shit down these drivers' necks. I'm joined by Chris, joining me once again for another fun-filled week of tomfoolery and semantics. Chris, thank you for joining me as always. But
it is good to be here.
I think this week is a kind of if you're a NASCAR fan, I think arguably could be a make or break week. Obviously, in the media, we're hearing from Mr. Bob Hockrass about the Denny Hamlin contract issue at Gibbs, but that's not the topic today. We're talking about it is the end of the regular season, better known as many people who work in the NASCAR industry of, yay, we got 12 more weeks of winter, or I mean NASCAR. And so let's talk about it in a serious way. We're down to the nitty gritty here. Who makes the playoffs? Who goes home and drives around in circles for no other reason other than a paycheck? Chris, I think we'll be remiss here. We can kind of go through the driver list of who's in, and then we're going to kind of go through the bubble. What do you think about that? Who do you think out of the roll of the dice drivers this week in Daytona, which arguably is the most roll of the dice tracks you'll ever drive and have a race at, be the barn burner that's going to be? So, Chris, I want to hear your thoughts a little bit on what you think, who you're looking forward to maybe in the playoffs when we get to that part. But are you happy the regular season in NASCAR is coming to a dramatic close?
Yeah, I mean, I think this Saturday's race will be could have the potential to be a really, really good show. When you look at the points and the implications, obviously, as you mentioned, I mean, essentially, you have one driver. Of the 15 drivers who are locked in. And so basically you have the remaining drivers racing for one playoff spot, and then the 16th place driver, Bubba Wallace, trying to keep himself in the points, keep himself in that bubble spot. So just real quick, we'll look at the drivers who are locked in right now on points.
Sure thing. I think we want the list, or you got it there ready for you?
Yeah, I got it pulled up right now. So, okay. So I guess two things here. We'll also look at the bubble spot, but we also need to factor into the regular season champion, who gets an additional 15 bonus points, which that comes in handy, especially in the first opening couple rounds. If you have a good amount of playoff points leading in, on top of those playoff points, you can almost not necessarily, I mean, you can't dog it in the round of 12 or maybe even in the round of 8, but you have quite a big cushion. So Martin Truex Jr. is the current points leader. This is the actual point standings. This is not the playoff standings, so it might be a little bit different. So Martin Truex Jr. is the points leader. He's obviously locked in with his 3 wins. Denny Hamlin second, William Byron is third. William Byron with 5 victories on the year, but they did have that big points penalty earlier in the season. Right now he does lead in terms of playoff points with 28 playoff points. Christopher Bell's 4th, Kyle Larson 5th, Brad Keselowski, even though he does not have a win, he technically is 6th in points right now. But he is locked in based on his finish last week in Watkins Glen. Chris Buescher, who won recently at Michigan, he's 7th. Ross Chastain won at Nashville, is 8th. Ryan Blaney won the 6th the Coca-Cola 600's 9th. Kevin Harvick's locked in on points. Kyle Busch, he has 3 wins this year. He's technically 11th in points. Tyler Reddick won in Austin. Joey Logano won in Atlanta. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he's 15th in points, but is locked in with his Daytona 500 victory. And then right now the lowest points getter but is locked in is Michael McDowell down in 17th, but he's locked in based on his win at the Indy Road Course 2 weeks ago. So right now, the bubble spot's held by Bubba Wallace. I think he has about a 30. He's got a 24.
It shows 30. It shows 32 points right now.
32. 32 point. He's got a 32 point lead right now over 17th place. So, essentially he doesn't have to necessarily win the race. I mean, if he wins it, that would be obviously it'd be perfect for him, but he doesn't necessarily need to win the race. But a strong night, I think, would probably get him safely there if there is not a new winner. But you have guys like Daniel Suarez, Ty Gibbs, who's been actually running a lot better, AJ Allmendinger, and than two Hendrick drivers who are outside the points right now. Alex Bowman, who's down right now, he's 20th in points, and then obviously Chase Elliott, who will probably be a topic of discussion during this episode, who sits 21st in points, heading in. But you look at also Austin Cindric, who, Daytona 500 winner, Justin Haley, who, did win this race a couple of years ago, Ryan Preece, Eric Almirola, former winner of the summer race at Daytona, Eric Jones, another former winner, Austin Dillon, former Daytona 500 winner. So there's Chase Briscoe. He's 31st in points. It's hard to believe, but you really can't. There's really no one you can really count out of that group of guys. Corey LaJoie, who's been pretty good on the super speedway tracks as well. So
I think we will be remiss if we didn't talk about just the fact of the matter that NASCAR made the scheduling change to basically encourage this roll of the dice, and that anybody could make the playoffs here at the very last race before the playoffs start. Because there's, like you mentioned there, we can go through the list of drivers again, but I think you pretty much topped them out with drivers that are playoff potential. As much as I am I would say a diehard Jeff Gordon fan, I think I need to discuss this briefly. Hendrick Motorsports, whatever happened at Watkins Glen is their own business, and they will handle that internally. Alan Gustafson is not going anywhere off that pit box at any time soon. So for all you haters on social media, you need to get off your little soapbox. That man ain't going anywhere. So last time, I'll say it again, he ain't going nowhere. It was a mistake. It happens in racing. Is it bad? You're damn right it is. But guess what? Mistakes do happen. These guys are human beings, and that's the sport. You don't come to play. You don't come to play. You can't have an opportunity to win. So that being said, Chris, I think it's remiss that we don't kind of go into this in a sense. I'm not a crazy Bubba Wallace fan. I'm just not.
Neither of us are.
I don't think there'd be remiss here. I'll be I guess people can call me whatever they want to call me, but that man can drive a car maybe to a top 25. That's what all Bubba Wallace has to do. Is drive around the track and get himself a top 25 finish, and he's locked in.
If there's not a first time a new winner.
Well, I mean, legitimately, that's just the scenario. But Daytona does not allow you to drive around there to be a top 25 car by the end of it. You see guys every single time a Daytona race comes out. You see a Ricky Stenhouse, a Michael McDowell. Which, by the way, Michael McDowell's victory at the road course of Indianapolis, we had not talked about. It is a very, very awesome experience to see a guy like him win a race like that and do it in a very handed fashion, better known as just a good old country ass whooping. That's what we watched. And so I was actually very excited to see that, because I haven't seen that in NASCAR in a very long time. But
real quick, touching on that. I mean, I think that also. I mean, I know a lot of people have been very critical of this car, from a safety aspect, from a competition aspect, just everything that's kind of gone into this new car here in the last couple of years. But I think we'd be remiss to say, I mean, that victory from Michael McDowell, Front Row Motorsports, a small team, beating the likes of Hendrick and Joe Gibbs Racing and Team Penske. I mean, excuse me, without a car like that, if we were looking at the old car, the Generation 6 car, I think the chances of that happening are pretty slim to none, just because obviously they just don't have the, the tools, the equipment. I mean, even now they're still at whether, even though it's a spec car in a lot of ways, I mean, they're still at somewhat of a disadvantage compared to
He talks about that at the
yeah, Denny's
conduct
podcast.
Danny's podcast. They were conduct detrimental, and I'll be remiss. I mean, I hate saying that word remiss, but it's really down to this: can Chase Elliott win the race? Does he have the skill? Absolutely. There's no question about it that he has the skill to win a race. The problem is he's never won at Daytona. He's won at Talladega. He has never won at Daytona. Which, by the way, any NASCAR fan can tell you, Daytona is a monster of and of itself. It is the great Dale Earnhardt took many times to win the Daytona 500. Many times.
20 years. Took
His
20 years to win it.
his son was arguably probably one of the best plate track drivers of all time. Him and Michael Waltrip at DEI during that time frame was arguably during the 2000s were a very great team. So when you look at Chase Elliott here, do I think he has the opportunity to win? Yes. Unfortunately, he's going to be a victim of his own demise because you can't be the level of aggression in that race ramps up as the race goes on. Anyone that's ever watched Daytona knows, yeah, you got different guys out front that you normally don't see out front. You got different guys when they're going, when they're not going to go. But the difference of the car now makes everything different. And I don't think he has it. Nothing personal against him as a person. I just don't think Chase Elliott's going to do anything substantial to win that race. Uh, I don't think he's going to do it. Ty Gibbs, however, and this might blow your socks off here, Chris, I think he does. I think he has it. I think he has the killer instinct to do it. And that's a unique way to put it for me. I am not a Toyota fan by no imagination. I'm not a Gibbs fan by any means of the imagination either. But I think he has the killer drive if he wants to do it. The difference is, though, if he wins, he knocks out his teammate Bubba Wallace, which there might be a little bit of a thing there, but I don't know.
I think what we're going to see on Saturday that's going to be interesting, and we've seen it really. It's become more prominent here. Probably say the last 5 to 6 years, and on the super speedway tracks has been the manufacturer alliances. So I think the manufacturer alliances are going to be huge this weekend. I mean, if you're a Ford team, I think the I think the thought of the Fords working, and I think both manufacturer and team. I mean, if you're Penske right now, the goal is to get Austin Cindric into the playoffs. So Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, you're not leaving the back bumper of that 2-car the whole race. You look at Hendrick Motorsports is kind of an interesting spot because you got 2 cars that are outside the playoffs. So, the idea that now they've got to figure out which, whoever's in position, which one, whoever's in position, they got to make sure they get in. So, William Byron and and Kyle Larson are going to be, they're going to be at the mercy of their teammates, to try and get, and Chase Elliott, obviously, to get their teammates in, like a track house, obviously just a 2-car operation, but Ross Chastain's going to be working as hard as he can to get Daniel Suarez in. So I think both the manufacturer and the team alliances are going to be really, really big. That last restart is going to be interesting, as with the choose rule on super speedways now this year, where it was, now teams can, you can basically kind of get lined up behind your teammates and stuff. So it's going to be an interesting race on Saturday night for sure, because there's definitely a lot of storylines to go along with it.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about one more storyline here that's kind of wasn't talked about much in the brief topic at the start of the podcast, but it was the regular season champion getting the additional 15 points. And I think legitimately, you're going to see a lot of those other guys you just mentioned, the Ford, the teammates and the things along those lines. When push comes to shove, when you're less than 2 laps to go, you're going to see the claws come out, and you're going to see a different mentality. It depends on who's left. Obviously, by the time we get less than 20 laps to go, the field might be, destroyed. That's one thing about Tony Stewart. Has many infamous quotes about it, about plate racing and restrictor plate racing. Just line them back up again, let them crash again. These guys, when it comes to less than 20 laps to go, they're going to make the instincts to try to win and get themselves lined up in position, especially with less than 2 laps to go. Do you see a guy that's locked in, potentially trying to win that race down the line to lock in some more points? Maybe a guy that's maybe towards the back of the playoff standings trying to win that race that maybe help secure him in the round of 8 or even the round of 12.
Oh yeah, no,
So
I think for sure. Sorry, apologies over here. I'm a little bit of an allergy allergy thing going on
oh,
me,
look,
but
don't feel bad. I'm in the Mile High Stadium right now. This is good luck breathing.
yeah. But I do think that, yeah, I mean, if you're locked into the playoffs, and you have the ability to win the race, I mean, you got to. I mean, that's five playoff point, 5 playoff points you don't want to leave on the, you don't want to leave on the table. I mean, that's huge. I mean, you got to factor in, if you look at it for the most part, and you'd have to pull numbers and look at it, but you know, on average, most guys who win a championship or in the playoffs, I mean, they're gonna have at least one bad race in the playoffs. I think the goal for any team is obviously if you can win. I mean, and we could talk more about it as the playoffs begin, but I think the biggest races, in my opinion, um, are the biggest rounds, or I guess biggest races in each of the rounds. I think if you come out and win Darlington, that's huge. I mean, it just starts your playoffs strong. You come out and win Darlington, you don't really have to worry about the next 2 races, and you can put all that focus into the round of 12. And everybody says the biggest race of the besides is that first race in the round of 8, which I believe I should know. Yeah. So when you look at the playoffs and each of the rounds, I mean, obviously the biggest race, I think start off the playoffs winning at Darlington, that's huge. You basically don't have to worry about Kansas or worry about Bristol, which is a big, I wouldn't say is as big of a wild card as Talladega or the Roval is, but just knowing that it doesn't come down to that. Being able the round of 12, when you look at it, being able to win at Texas is huge, because then you have 2 wild cards in Talladega and Charlotte, and then that round of 8, which last year Joey Logano was able to do it. He wins in Vegas, and that basically gives him and his team essentially 2 weeks, not to dog it, but to also say, all right, now we put all of our focus on Phoenix. So that's that's huge. So you look at those races there, and if you can win the first race in each of the rounds, I mean, that just makes your road to the play, your road to Phoenix even easier. It's almost like not necessarily having a first round bye, but it makes everything a lot easier when you're able to especially win those couple races that keeps you out of a wild card scenario, and/or coming down to Homestead and then Martinsville to close out for the championship race.
So, I mean, not to ask a question here, but do you see Chase Elliott winning this Saturday, or do you see a guy like maybe one of the non-winners, the other drivers, maybe potentially stealing the show and getting himself locked in? Do you
Yeah.
see Chase? Do you see Chase doing it, or is it one of these guys like Ty Gibbs or
No,
Eric Almirola or Justin Haley, even AJ Allmendinger? Some of these guys.
I mean, you look at the perspective of this, from a NASCAR standpoint. Do they want Chase Elliott in the playoffs, just from an eyeballs or of a fan perspective? Absolutely. Um, Chevrolet has strength in numbers, so they are going to put, Chevrolet obviously is going to put heavily focused on their basically their A team, which is Hendrick Motorsports. Now granted, Hendrick Motorsports has 2 cars outside. I would tend to believe that the focus would be if you were to say to someone, Hendrick, who would you rather have, Chase Elliott or Alex Bowman? I mean, the you know the thought, the notion that they would not, would probably say Chase Elliott. I mean, that's who they would want. So yeah, can Chase do it? Absolutely. I mean, obviously, as you said, he won at Talladega, so he has a win on a super speedway. I mean, you can also say Atlanta, because Atlanta, excuse me, races like a super speedway as well now. So, so yeah, I think there's no, but again, it is such a crapshoot with the way this race is. I mean, you look at last 2 Daytona 500 winners, Ricky Stenhouse here and Austin Cindric. I mean, you can go back to 2021 and and Michael McDowell. So, essentially had 3 surprise winners in the Daytona 500. So, there's definitely a lot to be had here in terms of, I think everybody's got a shot out of all those guys of who can do it for sure.
I think we'd be very, very subjective and not observationally, or I would say, what do you want to call it? We wouldn't be biased if I would say that as much as I enjoy watching the race be a complete crash show, I would hope for a clean race, but that doesn't happen at Daytona. So it just doesn't, because guys they block. I think the reputation that Joey Logano has for blocking gets him in trouble. and so, but these alliances are going to be very crucial, I think, going forward, especially in the playoffs as well. If the drivers, and I think we got an organization like Penske, that if he doesn't have Austin Cindric in there, Austin Cindric's going to do his very best to kind of obviously help out 2 other guys inside the playoffs. Maybe
or Harrison Burton,
or Harrison at Talladega down the road. So we'll be seeing a lot of that, I think. Maybe even not just Daytona, but we'll see it at Talladega later on in the fall. And that's where I think a lot of it, unfortunately, is the downside to this car. And I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily to have alliances and to be taking care of your teammates in a sense. I just think it's it goes back to the old school way of, we're going to be playing points, and that's the way you want it, and that's the way it should be. A guy that's dominant throughout the regular season shouldn't have to worry about winning the championship at the end of the regular season. I think who will be the regular season champion, though, Chris? Do you have any prediction there? You think, is there enough of a point lead there?
I mean, Truex has a 39-point lead.
Okay.
I think it's all, unless something crazy happens, I think it's going to be pretty difficult for Truex not to win. Okay. I don't know what the scenarios are. If Denny needs to win and Truex needs to finish outside the top 30, excuse me, for it to happen. But yeah, I think I tend to believe I'm going to go probably with a 19 car to win it. I mean, I think even Denny alluded to it on, I think maybe it was either this week or last week, where he said, he's like, man, I'd love to have those 25 points back from the, which I totally disagree with the penalty, but he would love to have those points back, because I think, he'd only be 14 points out right now, which is a much more.
And I think both can agree on this opinion, that penalty should not have been even happening, and the penalty of William Byron sustained and got revoked early in the year should have just stayed there, because I'm sorry, but Denny Hamlin didn't do anything that any other driver, any sports person hasn't done before. So yeah. It's sad when that kind of stuff happens. Chris, I appreciate you joining me, man. I think it's best to wrap it up here on this discussion, and I think hopefully we have a great race. We have a great beginning of the.
Well, I guess one last thing before we wrap it up. Who's going to be our picks to get in that 16th spot?
I'm gonna go with Ty Gibbs. I'm going to be the dark horse on that one. I'll go with Ty Gibbs in the 16th pick, which would basically mean that he's looking for his first Cup win still. So I think the kid's looking for something, not just playoff implications. He's looking for something bigger, and I think he has it. He has that killer instinct that I think this might be a good opportunity to do it. A good roll of the dice. My second pick, I'll make 2 if you permit me here. The second one I made is Eric Amarola.
That was, yeah.
And I think Amarola is a unique player in all of this that a lot of people are underestimating. And he's still in really good, solid equipment there at Stewart-Haas. I think Stewart-Haas needs to make a play in the playoffs. And it would be a down year for them if they don't have anybody in the playoff picture. So I think those are my two picks. Definitely I'd be interested to hear yours, but I think those are my two. Ty Gibbs and either Eric or Amarola. So
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go.
Didn't mean to steal one of yours, buddy. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna. Again, not a huge fan of him. I'm gonna go Bubba Wallace for if we're doing two picks. I'm gonna go Bubba Wallace. He's been really good on the plate tracks. He's got points in hand, so it's not like he's playing at a total deficit. So I'm gonna go Bubba Wallace, and then I'm gonna pick a Ford because the Fords have been really good on the plate tracks. I'm gonna go. I think here. I know you don't want to do pregnant pauses on radio on a podcast. I'm gonna go.
Nah, doesn't bother me.
I'm gonna go. Man, Amarola was a good pick. I don't know why. All right, I'm gonna change mine here. I'm gonna go Daniel Suarez. So I'm gonna go Bubba Wallace or Daniel Suarez.
I want to make sure are you sure you don't got COVID with that pick? All jokes aside, but yeah, I don't. I can understand why you picked Suarez there, but I don't. But hey, it is what it is, buddy. And I think we'll be solid here. I think we'll wrap it up here. I appreciate everybody joining us. I think the best part about this is that we're gonna have a really good race on Saturday, and we're gonna watch the end of the regular season, and then roll into one of the arguably the crown jewels of the entire sport, and that is the Southern 500. In 2 weeks after that, which is really cool. Just for a sports fan standpoint, I always enjoy going to Darlington myself. It's a great opportunity for race fans, if you are a race fan, to enjoy that racetrack and that community. And Chris, I appreciate you joining me, buddy. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Next episode, by the way, next topic is going to be the preview of the NFL season. We make our picks on who's going to win the division and who our Super Bowl picks are going to be. We're calling it out now at the beginning of the season. It's going to be a good episode. Appreciate you joining us. Everyone have a good rest of your week. Stay classy. Appreciate everybody. 38, 34. All right. You good, buddy?
Yeah, man. All good.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Yankee Cowboy Podcast. Feel free to follow us on social media via Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook.